Well, European countries and others are fuming. Is that a bad thing? To Senate Environmental and Public Works Committee member, Senator James Inhofe. Senator, always good having you. My own view on this, Senator, and again, I could be very, very wrong. I merely oftentimes parrot the wisdom of my guests and call it my own. But one of the things I see is the president has already proven on a couple of crucial matters that he's pretty good at reversing himself, but not making it look so obvious. On NAFTA, renegotiating it. Even on the Tel Aviv versus Jerusalem thing for Israel, we'll keep our embassy in Tel Aviv. That was a very big deal, and he campaigned almost throughout saying Jerusalem is where it should be. So what I'm seeing from that, disparate examples both, is that he'll change on a dime. What do you think?
Well, you know, I don't think that's quite fair, and I've never, I don't recall it ever having a big disagreement with you.
Well, it's okay. This is your last visit anyway, but go ahead.
Yeah, he's said that he still wants to move the embassy to Jerusalem, but isn't ready to do it right now.
Now isn't the time.
I'd suggest that you start looking at some of the things that he's done. If you want to go to my website, you can see at inhofe.senate.gov. We've listed all of the regulations, 47 of them, that he's been able to undo that were very damaging to America. But on this thing that's coming up, I was listening to your previous segment, and I think he is going to pull out. I think he made that commitment, and I think he'll do it. We might remember
could say,
that,
Senator, you mentioned those regulations and things that he's overturned. Many are environmental, that were the underpinnings of Barack Obama's accord in this climate deal. So he could say, by still staying in it, yeah, but I've taken some of the more onerous teeth out by executive action, taking away those burdens on business, and claim that it's a win-win.
Well, Neil, first of all, I think he's going to pull out.
Okay.
And I sent a letter signed by 22 senators last week encouraging him to do it, and I believe he is going to do it. So I think that's...
So you don't agree with Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State, and others who said, well, you know, I have Ivanka Trump in there too. Hey, you lose a lot of leverage when you do that with these guys.
Okay, I just don't agree with them. I have talked to them about it. That seat at the table they keep talking about, that was established in 1992. That was called the... Well, it was the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Now, every year they have this big party, the United Nations does, and the last one, of course, was the Paris Agreement, or the Paris Party. Now, what did the president say, commit on behalf of the United States at that time? You and I talked about this 2 months ago, the Clean Power Plant. And that was, we will reduce our emissions, CO2 emissions, by between 26 and 28% by 2025. Now, there are two problems with that, Neil. First of all, it can't be done. His own EPA at that time said, this is impossible, we can't do it. And the second thing is, he'd have to have concurrence of Congress. The 192 countries that meet every December are not aware of our form of government. They assume if the president says we're going to do something, we're going to do it. Well, we're not going to do it. We can't do it, and it's not going to happen.
But, you know, Senator, you could argue that those emission levels are already down 15%.
Oh, sure they are.
So I'm not justifying that for the accord. I am saying the market forces at play in this country, with the cheaper, cleaner, alternative fuel, natural gas among them, you know, has already had the desired effect, whether you're part of this agreement or not. So even if the president were to reject it, to your point, the trend might continue. Could he use that? I'm not trying to politicize it here, but could he use that as a reminder if he pulls out that, look, cleaner air is still on the way, whatever?
Well, I think you've got to keep in mind that in this country right now, the previous president, Obama, has had a war on fossil fuels. That's coal, oil, and gas. In addition, he didn't like nuclear either. Our country's depended upon coal, oil, gas, and nuclear for 89% of the power that we generate. I mean, you know, how do you run this machine called America if you pull that out? And the answer is you can't. Your previous guest was talking about China. Let me tell you, we know what the president said our commitment is, even though it's something we can't do. But China is being honest and saying, you know, we're going to continue cranking out one new power plan every 10 days for the next until about 2025. Then we'll consider reducing our CO2 emissions. What kind of a deal is that,
Yeah,
Neil?
no, for them it's a very good deal. There's very little, you know, call to do anything.
And then you talk about India, another
Yeah.
one of the big polluters out there, if they want to call that pollution. They want $2 trillion. Everyone's come to the table thinking that they can go to that meeting, the big party every December, and somehow, I've talked to people in Africa who go there just for the purpose of trying to get in line to get all this money that's been promised by the previous
Well, it's going to be
administration.
trillions of dollars. You're right about that. Who gets it and what they do with it, anyone's guess. Senator James Inhofe, you know, you were so rational and argued your point so well. I think we will have you back, even though you disagreed
Well,
with me.
read my book, The
All right.
Greatest Hoax, and you'll
All
find
right.
out.
Thank you, my friend. Very good seeing you.